Hey guys, look, I do not create conflicts with other YouTubers just for the sake of creating conflicts. I have repeatedly reached out to other YouTubers in friendship, even when they've really harmed me in the past. One of the most ridiculous examples being Joe Best. I was still reaching out to Joe Best positively and offering to do a Skype conversation with him, a podcast on my channel. Way after, he had crossed the line with me 6 times, 7 times. He had really defamed me several times on the internet. Seriously and needlessly. Joe Best is a fucking terrible human being. But still, I was reaching out to him positively and cooperatively way after we'd reached the point of diminishing returns. I'm just recording the audio so that I find that people really are more relaxed and, you can look at your notes. You don't feel like you have to keep eye contact with the camera or anything. So I'm only going to record the audio. And I told you before in email, if there's anything you regret saying, like, you say, I shouldn't have said that about my boss at work or something, I'm willing to delete anything. Cool.
Most people right now, you know what? I need headphones. I had this problem before.
Cool. Do it. That's the other advantage of not recording the video is that,
I've got headphones on. Can't hear myself though, but that's fine. So listen, the question is this, and it's the main topic right now. It's what people are interested in. Where's the money?
The $6,500, all of it has gone to the law firm, with the only exception being the money that went into the cost of the transfer itself, which I talked about those boring details, and the couple people who got the refunds. So Joe, that's it. The actual legal process is real. If you want to, I can send you a link to an article that explains to you what the legal process is in Thailand. It's extremely boring, that article. It's an actual...
I'm pretty versed with it. Yeah. So, $6,500 to a Thai law firm.
Correct, yeah. Because all I'm doing is pressing criminal charges. It's not a lawsuit. Yeah.
I understand. And what have they done with that?
Well...
Dude, it's a ton of money, man. When I was prosecuting the girls, I didn't go through with it in the end, but when I was prosecuting the girls, I was going after them. My law firm wanted it was something like 3,000 baht, so $100 an hour. They said it would take them 2 hours to prepare the case. And
so Joe, how did that work out for you?
Well, I decided not to go through with it because I felt that it was too mean for what it just felt like it was too much. I was angry at the time, so I wanted to do something. I went to the solicitors, but it wasn't a lot of money. It was $6,500, man. I could have put them all in whatever, it wasn't that much money. It was like 3,000 baht.
Joe, I hope you never have to go through what I'm going through, Joe. But Joe, what I'm going through it's an international law firm. It's an international case. It involves translation. It involves travel for the lawyer. There are real costs. So Joe, let me just finish. If you think I got a bad deal, you're entitled to your opinion. I think I got a perfectly good deal. And many people, including you, used to complain that I wasn't paying enough, that it was impossible that my court case was legit because this wasn't enough money. Yeah. So, say what you want to say.
Okay. In Thailand, it's much, much cheaper. So let me ask you this.
So Joe, let me ask you, what's your experience with what the cost is for a case like this? Have you ever looked at an international defamation case?
It would probably cost me about 10,000 baht.
Joe, Joe, your case is totally unrelated. It's totally different. How is that comparable? So an international case dealing with defamation, dealing with translating YouTube videos into Thai, those costs. Okay, all right, okay, so that's interesting. Okay, okay.
The video that the girls made into Thai, and they said that if I wanted to, I could hire a student to do it, so that could be quite cheap. And they said I got to pay a police officer, which was the funny part. I got to pay a police officer 10,000 baht to go and arrest them at the hotel, each one.
Joe, your case, that sounds dodgy as hell. I've got to tell you. So, okay, but Joe, I hope you can recognize what you've just reported to me compared to the law firm I've dealt with. That really sounds dodgy as hell. If these are actual concerns you have, why don't you ask me? You could say that about any of these people. They go straight to defaming you publicly. And a lot of the defamation, whether it's Joe Best or Jeff Nelson or a guy like Jack Green, I'm going to talk about in a second here, they start by saying, well, I just don't understand why blank. and then they go on to defame you. So like in Jeff Nelson's case, it was, well, I don't understand why you were in Chiang Mai anyway. Well, Jeff, you didn't see any of my videos explaining that because the facts were out there if you were interested. You never asked me. You never sent me an email. You never talked to me. You've just used this as a pretext to attack and defame me. In most of these situations, you can't cooperate with somebody unless they want to cooperate with you. There's no way. I can honestly say it is impossible to cooperate with Joe Best. I've tried. Come on, you must be able to reflect on that.
Funny, but Durianrider came into Thailand, and you said he's absolutely going to be arrested. What happened?
No, that's not what I said. If you listen to my videos, I talk through exactly what's happening. I pay my lawyer. My lawyer goes to court and gives the papers to the prosecution service, which is equivalent to your Crown Prosecution Service in England. And what I did not realize is just how long and slow the process is after that. Now, Joe, let me ask you for a very simple comparison. If you think the timeline of my case is very slow, I'll name another case that you also know is real. You know this. You know the people involved. You know Hannah Chloe's case is real.
Yeah.
So why? No, but Joe, let me ask you very simply. Why? If you think the amount of time my case has taken is long, why is Hannah Chloe's case taking even more time? Because she didn't have banking delays. For me, the biggest part of the delay for me was the bank transfer. Then finally, I paid the lawyer, and the process started in Thailand. So Hannah didn't have that delay. Well, okay. In terms of the bank, when the bank transfer was done, I'm sorry. You can check my YouTube if you want the exact date, because I made a video when the transfer went through, but I forget. No, what? It's more than a month now since I paid the lawyer. Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, I'm not going to put this on my channel.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but what?
At the moment, we are not doing a podcast. I'm
Well,
not talking to you.
Okay, but this is recorded. Yeah, but Joe, right.
I'm not trying to incriminate you.
Yeah, I understand.
It's not like a bully tactic. I'm just really curious.
Right. Okay, but it's also
Yeah.
Joe, your word has not been worth very much so far, but I hope this is the start of a more positive case. But as I say, Hannah Chloe, she has been through a similar legal process, and hers started earlier because unlike me, she didn't have to collect money from generosity.org. It didn't have to deal with a bank transfer to China that failed. You know, those was like 2 months or more of delay. Was just getting the money to the lawyer. And Hannah's case, he hasn't been arrested yet by Hannah's case either, but she's going through a similar process. So, okay.
Do you think this is going to happen?
Well, let me ask you very simply. Do you think Hannah's case is fake or no?
Do I think her case is fake? I don't know any. I cannot give an opinion. I have no idea.
Really?
I know she said she's going to do a
Okay.
case, but how would I know?
Okay, well, I'll tell you my opinion. I don't think her case is fake. I don't think my case is fake. But as I've said on my channel many, many times, all you can do in this life is decide to do the right thing for the right reasons. And then you see what the outcomes are. It is totally possible, Joe, that my lawyer would come back to me and say, look, we prepared everything, we presented to the judge, and the judge decided to throw it out, or the prosecution service said, no, but Joe, let me finish my sentence. Joe, was I in mid-sentence or not? Joe, you know this in England, Crown Prosecution Service. If the Crown Prosecution Service, they have the right to decide whether or not to press charges, whether or not it's in the public interest. You know this.
Well, I do understand it, but what I'm saying is that, are you saying that they can come back to you and they can say that there is no case and then the money's gone?
Yes, like any other legal system in the world, because I pay to present my case to a judge and to ask the Thai government to do justice. I don't run the Thai government. So, Joe, if you did this in England, if you paid a solicitor to speak on your behalf, to plead your case to the Crown Prosecution Service, saying my client needs justice, you pay your lawyer to plead your case, and you do not decide what the Crown Prosecution Service does. So on some level, Joe, you're not looking at my camera.
What's the hourly rate of your company?
Joe, I'm not going to discuss these details with you.
Hourly rate? Works with lawyers on an hourly basis, mate.
Hey, Joe, how's Joe, how's that worked out for you? Your case went nowhere. I've heard you say.
It went nowhere because I chose not to.
Okay, but Joe, I've heard you talk on YouTube about how sad and disappointed you were with the experience you had when you went to the police in Thailand and when you dealt with your lawyer. I mean, I've heard you on YouTube talking about what happened, how it made you feel.
$6,500.
Joe,
right.
All right, Joe, if you think I got ripped off, fine.
I think you got ripped
but
off, mate. Stop trying to say crap like that. I'm just looking at how much you're paying and how long that should last you, because it's quite a lot to pay for this prosecution.
Okay, Joe,
you've got this
Joe,
where you can
Joe,
say But they didn't get any criminal charges, and I've lost the money. Thank you very much.
Joe.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, I heard what you said. Joe, what university degree do you have?
Well, what's that got to do with anything?
Joe, I mean, you've never studied the law, have you?
Well, it doesn't matter. I've studied common sense.
Okay, I've studied political science. Joe, my first diploma is in political science. What's your diploma in? What do you say? I know you used to work in finance. Do you have a degree in economics?
Why does it matter?
I'm just asking you a question. Why does it matter what my contract with the law firm is, whether it's hourly or lump sum?
I'm just asking. Because I'll tell you why it matters. Because if you tell me how much you're paying, I can work out how many hours you've bought up front.
Joe, did I ask for your help? Are you trying to help me?
No.
So what are you trying to do? Okay. So Joe, where did you study? Where did you go to university?
I went to university. I went to two universities. Went to Leeds University. And I went to Penn State.
What diploma did you get at Leeds?
What diploma did I get at Leeds?
Or either of those places. What do you say?
Architectural engineering.
That's very. I never knew that about you. So you studied architecture. That's.
Yeah, and I
I'm very
have a
surprised.
master's degree in architectural engineering from the US as well.
Oh, I'm very surprised to hear that because I've never heard you mention that channel. That's interesting. I'm getting to know you.
I'm full of surprises.
Okay. So Joe, do you have any experience that would lead you to be competent to estimate how much a case like this would cost in Thailand? Do you have any experience in education?
Well, I tell you what, I do not have any experience in terms of working out how much you've spent.
So why did you offer to do that? So why are you trying to do that? Okay.
You don't need experience to be able to estimate whether or not someone's telling the truth. You don't need like law experience.
Okay. So you think you can estimate how much money I spent on this case?
Of course I can. $6,500. I could go to Sime Legal tomorrow and say, look, what do you think about this?
Joe, do it. Joe, here's what I encourage you to do. Joe, why don't you go ahead and do that? Why don't you, Joe, why don't you go ahead and talk to a series of law firms in Thailand, which is what I did, and get different estimates.
Why do you think being asked about this so much?
Joe, I'm answering your question. Joe, if you think...
You get very defensive though. Why do you have
No, I'm not. Joe, I've answered your questions completely openly and directly. Joe, I take it you have not done what I did, which is you talked to several law firms about what services they'd offer, what prices. You can do that, and if you got wonderful, better estimates, that's interesting. I'd be interested to know that. You know what? I wish I could tell you that Joe Best was an exception to the rule. I think the reality is somebody like Joe Best is the rule. And I want to be clear on this. You know, Joe Best does not hate me, or he doesn't hate me all the time. Put it that way. Joe Best has at several points gotten worked up, like in his own imagination has built up the image of me as a terrible person and has come online and denounced me. And almost every single time he regrets it soon thereafter and he stops hating me. And sometimes he actually unlists the videos, he deletes the videos, this kind of thing. You know what I mean? So... And he's not being fake either. He's being sincere. He's also just stupid. Like Joe Best, at one point he built up this crazy delusion in his mind that I was an immoral and evil person because he felt I was lying on my Patreon page, the call for donations on the Patreon page. And, you know, he's just so stupid. He worked up in his imagination this idea. You know, he's taking his assumptions about what I said and what it meant and how I was lying to my audience and then attacking me for that. And at another point, I mean, just as stupid or stupider, he was working up in his mind the notion that I was lying about what happened with the actual financial transfer. Really boring details, but why it was for at least 2 months. I think it was 2 months or 3 months. I was delayed in paying my lawyers. Some of you guys remember that, some of you don't. Because these completely boring details about trying to send an international bank transfer from the United States to mainland China and then from China to Thailand. Look, Joe, right now, do you think you sound clever or stupid? What do you know about the process? Okay, well, Joe, I care. Okay, Joe, I care. And I'm telling you, you sound stupid. Joe.
You don't provide solid answers.
Okay, so Joe, why don't you tell me? You've never talked to me before. I laugh all the time because I find this hilarious. So, Joe, why don't you tell me, with your fabulous education in architecture, why don't you tell me what I don't understand about the Thai legal system? Because you think you understand it better than I do, which is entirely possible.
Right, and they're going to plead your case. So let me ask you this. You talked about translation.
Yeah, that's part of it, right?
readers do not need to see any videos. What videos have the Durianrider made need to be translated?
Well, what kind of question is that? You already know. He made videos defaming me and threatening me. You know this.
So, no, he didn't make any videos threatening you. He made a Facebook post threatening you, which you made into a video.
Joe, do you really want to debate that with me? Whether or not Durianrider defamed me or threatened me in videos? Really? Okay, so Joe, your claim is Joe, is your claim that Durianrider has never defamed me or threatened me in a video? Is that really what you're saying?
I'm asking you what's the crime you prosecuted him on.
Joe, I think I've been very patient with your questions that are both malicious and not trying to help me and bullshit. Okay? Joe, I'm not going to tell you, Joe, I'm not going to tell you any further details about the case.
Okay. Look, this is what I suggest.
Joe, did I ask for you? What are you going to suggest, Joe? Oh, here's some really useful advice from Joe Best. Is it about architecture? Is it about hypnosis? Is it about how to seduce Henyamania? What's it going to be about, Joe? What are you going to tell me?
Is that I wouldn't do a podcast with you at this stage. It's not going to happen. I think I'd rather you get this all cleared up because it just doesn't ring true to me completely. Part of me thinks like you cannot be lying. You must be telling the truth. Who would do such a horrible thing? And then part of me is like it just doesn't add up. So I think the best thing is that we don't do a podcast. Let's get this thing cleared out the way, and then we'll see where you stand then.
Okay, so Joe, your premise is that you do not believe the case is legitimate because it is too expensive. But I can respect that, but that is your premise.
Overall, things don't seem to add up. It doesn't seem to add up that anyone in their right mind would give a lump sum to a law firm for an unknown amount of hours on a case.
Oh, okay. Well, Joe, Yeah, okay. Joe, but that's easy for me to answer. But Joe, I can answer that question. Sure. Okay. Right. Joe, right. I understand. Joe, I understand. Joe, completely. Yes. Joe, I completely understand. Joe, I completely understand. So let me answer it. So Joe, let me answer the question. This is a very easy question. One of the reasons why you would pay a retainer or a lump sum is because I don't live in Chiang Mai. I live in Kunming, China. So for me to send many small bank transfers would be extremely difficult or impossible. So you are correct. No, but Joe, okay, but Joe, I'm answering your question. 1, I needed to raise money through donations, which I did. 2, I needed to send it basically in one transfer, or it could have been 2, but I can't send a transfer every month. I can't do that from like.
You're in China.
So what? You'd be talking to me saying,
Is that one again? You're in China. You can't.
Joe, do you have any Joe? Do you have any experience dealing with the Chinese banking system? Because like the other people who do,
Canadian bank?
I do, but for me, but you talk about a transfer from Canada to China to Chiang Mai. I wanted that, but Joe, stop. Why don't you just pause a minute? Joe, I have answered your question. You asked, Joe, you asked a totally reasonable question. Why would anyone prefer to send one payment rather than many small payments? And Joe, I've given you a very clear answer. 1, because the money is raised through a fundraiser. So, you gather the money together and the company sends to me. And 2, because it is very difficult for me to do complex, like every 2 weeks or every month, banking between Kunming and Chiang Mai. And again, my main bank account is in Canada, of course. An international bank transfer from the United States to mainland China and then from China to Thailand. It's not hard to see how you could have delays in there. And the vast majority of the delay, part of it was fucked up by my bank in China, but it was mostly the corporation in the United States, by the way, that screwed up. Most of the fault goes to the website itself, the American company that owns this website that I did the fundraising on. So anyway, it's like, this is not rocket science, but in his mind, he got some false assumptions, and then he gets stuck into attacking me. And then just as soon afterwards, he decides that I'm a quite all right bloke and he doesn't hate me at all. But those brief periods of time in which he was denouncing me and haranguing me on the internet, even if he deletes the videos later, because in some cases, I know he went back and unlisted videos or deleted videos. I know that. In some cases, Joe Best. I don't even check his channel. I don't know how many of his videos, defaming me are still up and how many he deleted. I really, really don't. But the problem is, whether you're talking about my contemporaries on YouTube as a whole, many people over a long period of time, or even if you're just talking about one guy, like Joe Best, over a long period of time, the moments in which those people hate me and defame me and denounce me, those are the loudest moments. Those are the moments that get the most attention. Those are the moments that endure in the mind's eye of the audience. Those are the moments that really form the perception of who I am. Joe, have I lived and worked in Thailand? Yes. Have I lived and worked in Hong Kong? Yes. Have I lived and worked in Taiwan? Yes. Okay? I have all of that experience. Okay, so Joe, why can't you bring it? Joe, no, it's a preference. Of course it's possible. Every time I would send money between, well, you know this, so you work in banking. What percentage of the value disappears every time I send money between Canada and China? Estimate. Transfer money goes. No, okay, but Joe, you're a banker. No, why don't you answer the question? Joe, what percentage of the value of money disappears with each transfer? When you're converting, so I'd be converting US dollars to Canadian dollars, one transfer, then Canadian dollars to Chinese renminbi, then Chinese renminbi to Thai baht. What percentage of the value of the money disappears? It is more than 10% with those transfers. Okay? No, Joe, you think, so you get into thousands of dollars. You want to give up 10% of the value?
It's not 100%, is it? But
Wait a minute, Joe. Joe, wait a minute. You were telling me honestly, you used to work in banking, and you actually do not think that for a private citizen, because I'm not an institutional user, you think it's insignificant for me to have to waste my time going to a Chinese bank, handling multiple transactions per month, and losing a significant percentage of the money. You think that's insignificant. Joe, I don't believe you ever worked in banking. Joe, I don't believe you ever worked in banking. If you are going to sit here and you're going to tell me you don't see that it would be better for me as a customer to pay a retainer rather than to pay a series of installments. No. So Joe, why? Wait. Joe, why would that be hard for you to understand if you have a background in banking? You can't understand. So doing a multiple international...
You gave them all your money. Can you see how stupid that sounds? To save yourself a fee, you gave the lawyer firm all your money. That doesn't make any sense.
Joe, I really think you have never worked in banking. Joe? Okay, Joe, send me... Joe, let me ask you something. Your degree is in architecture. What job did you do at Goldman Sachs? What was your job there? Why don't you send me some receipts? Because I nothing you have ever said suggests to me you have a...
transfer of money between Canada, China, and Chiang Mai.
Joe, what was your job at Goldman Sachs? And why can't you ever show some receipts of that? Nothing you've ever said suggests you have a background in economics or finance.
It doesn't matter.
Joe, what was your job? Did you mop the floor at Goldman Sachs? Did you do architecture at Goldman Sachs? There are a lot of different jobs at Goldman Sachs.
But it doesn't add up, mate.
Joe, I want to know, what job did you ever do at Goldman Sachs?
You're just distracting people.
No, Joe, it's a legit... Joe, I've spent a lot of time answering your questions. You've answered one of my questions, which is, what did you study at university?
I worked at Goldman Sachs. That's it.
Okay, what...
I mopped the floors.
Okay, you mopped the floors at Goldman Sachs? With your degree in architecture, what was the job you got at Goldman Sachs?
I did it.
Okay.
They said that, you're a good architect. Why don't you clean the floors? That's what I did.
Okay, so Joe, why can't you acknowledge the answer to your question? Why would it be hard to believe that for me, in this circumstance, yes, it is better for me to pay a retainer in one bank transfer rather than handling 10 bank transfers? And you already know the first bank transfer I handled.
If they get a case thrown out of the Crown Prosecution Service, do you get your money back?
Sure. Joe, to be honest, I have never even asked my lawyer that, because my lawyer is completely confident, whether it's bullshit or not, that he will succeed. But Joe, I could ask my lawyer. I doubt it. But hey, Thailand is rough. But I've never even discussed that with my lawyer.
Okay, let's see how it unfolds. All right, listen, man, I've got to run.
Joe, what a piece of shit you are, man. But look, so you're... Joe, I came here to have a positive interview with you, because partly I was just going to congratulate you with the improvements you made to your channel. I was just going to have a totally positive discussion with the fact that you used to.
I appreciate that. But for me, I just want to see this thing progress, because it's such a cloudy area. Let's see how this comes out. I just have some suspicions about this whole process, and I don't want to entertain the idea that they don't exist. I don't want to take your smoke and be like, oh, you know, whatever.
So Joe, every single question you've asked, I have answered. Yeah, Joe, of all.
You haven't shown one shred of evidence. It's just
Sure.
lots of talk.
Joe, I agree with you. Joe, I agree with you, and I've also answered that question. There is a real reason. Well, there are two reasons why I didn't show receipts. One is, like everything else, Durianrider will say it's fake, and many people say it, which is fine. They're allowed to say that. I know, but Joe, I'm answering your question. And number two is, Joe, I am encouraging Durianrider to believe it's fake because that is in my legal interest. It is in my legal interest that he continues to believe it's a fake case. Joe, I'm happy that Durianrider believes the case is fake. I've explained that to you repeatedly. Right now, that is in my legal interest. So,
let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah. Joe, you're never going to record another podcast with me. You're never going to get another chance. Joe, you've wrong. Joe, you wronged me seriously. You defamed me seriously on the internet. And you sent me a one-sentence apology.
People just go, oh yeah, I'm sure it's doing the right thing. You show no evidence.
Joe, I answered every single one of your questions. Joe, and you've dodged mine, as simple as they were.
That's one way to look at this conversation, but I'm sure when you play it back, you'll see that's not the case.
Joe. Okay, tell me when you're done. Joe, tell me when you're done. So you're gonna rant about a terrible person. Tell me when you're done.
I'm going to give you a monologue. You try to control people.
Joe, I'm turning off the sound. You tell me when you're done, okay? Tell me when you're done. The moments in which those people hate me and defame me and denounce me, those are the loudest moments. Those are the moments that get the most attention. Those are the moments that endure in the mind's eye of the audience. Those are the moments that really form the perception of who I am. And not the moments when later, in Joe Best's case, this is genuinely the case, not the moments when later Joe Best calmed down and I took the time to talk to him and reason through what his misconception was. Because this stuff is all boring. Whether it was Joe Best or Jeff Nelson. Like Jeff Nelson, I actually explained to him why I was in Chiang Mai at that time, what was going on. I gave him all this information. And he had to admit I was on the level. He was like, yeah, okay, right, this makes sense. Even Klaus from Plant-Based News. At one point, he had some crazy suspicions about me, probably because I was defamed by some other people in England. I can guess who they are. Some of the other vegan YouTubers there. I mean, I did have to kind of talk through Klaus. None of this stuff is true, and he got it. Klaus is not that dumb. I mean, somebody like Joe Best is really too stupid to put together. I think Klaus is a relatively sharp, relatively, earnest and hardworking guy. So Klaus put the pieces together. But look, those moments of anger and defamation directed towards me, even if they're fleeting, even if the people putting on the performance on YouTube do not really believe those things themselves, or even if they very soon lose faith in what it is they're saying, those moments really endure. So, here is my reply to Jack Green. I'm not going to read his email. I respect the privacy of private emails sent to me, but this is, I can read my reply that I wrote to him. I wrote to him as follows. Thanks for taking the time, Jack. I've made it a policy to reach out in friendship to vegans, even when they've kicked me in the teeth, even when they've insulted me publicly, whatever. And I'd say that a very small percentage of those efforts have been rewarded. However, there are some positive examples. Vegan lass Lauren Phoenix went from being an enemy to being a friend. Many others, however, have never responded. Joe Vegan knew my court case with DR was legit and saw paperwork. I showed him paperwork and offered to provide explanation of the paperwork as he really couldn't understand the legal details, etc. But he would never adjust his public position on defaming me, suggesting that I'm a scam artist, etc. Look, it's up to you, but obviously it takes 5 seconds to unlist a video, to change the video setting to private, to delete it, whatever. And your video, titled Eisel Mazard Destroys Jack Green, is still listed, with only 152 views, I note, despite its salacious subject matter. Some things you can't compromise on. I can't say that someone is 50% right if they're claiming I fucked Julia Bohr. And I can't say that someone is 50% right if they're claiming that I'm a scam artist or that I misled my donors in any way. Although it sounds reasonable when you say in this video that Durianrider and I are both 50% right and 50% wrong, that isn't the reality at all. Durianrider is 100% wrong, factually and morally, and I'm 0% wrong. That sounds unreasonable, but it's the reality of this situation. Durianrider lied, and I told the truth. Durianrider made threats of violence against me, and when I asked, okay, where do you want to meet? He was a coward. Durianrider backed down or didn't follow through. Okay? You, in that video, so Jack Green, you in that video call me a crybaby and a bitch, but the reality is that Durianrider was a coward, not me, even though he was the one who made the threats of violence, etc., creating the conflict. Watching the TV news tends to train people to regard two sides of an argument as both being partly right. But in this case, one side of the argument really is 100% wrong. And amazingly, even after you lost faith in Durianrider, you were still on the wrong side. Strange. So, look, what's the moral of the story? The vast majority of these people who create these problems for me, who defame me and denounce me on the internet, whether they do so with a sense of good humor or not, whether they think of themselves as trolling or comedians or not, the vast majority of them are people who are never going to make a positive contribution towards veganism as a political movement. But truth be told, I don't know which ones. Any of these people can turn their lives around. You know, I really do not like even what somebody like Vegan has to say about me. I don't like what somebody like Joe Vegan had to say about me. I don't like it. But if you ask me to make some kind of hard and fast decision, does Vegan or Joe Vegan, do they have nothing to contribute to veganism as a movement in the next 5 years? I'm slow. I do not want to jump to that conclusion. I am slow to jump to conclusions of that kind. I don't want to make a snap judgment this person is worthless because today I think their content is too lighthearted or too vapid or doesn't take these things seriously when they should or what have you. This guy, Jack Green, he can do anything with the rest of his life he wants to. His content currently I think is garbage, but I would be very slow to jump to the conclusion, even with somebody like him, that he has nothing to contribute in the next 5 years. But yeah, on that human level, so someone in the comment section just joked that I'm the vegan police. This is not about me policing other people's content. This is just about me reaching out to other people positively and trying to cooperate and me getting kicked in the teeth or disappointed again and again and again. That's what it's about. And, I think that ultimately the challenge here, it's not to suspend your judgment. It's not to treat everybody equally, because you can't. I can't regard all these people as equally having something positive to offer to veganism, et cetera, et cetera. I think the challenge is to be disappointed again and again and still reach out to people positively and try to cooperate, try to collaborate, despite that disappointment. To have that negative experience with, VegSource, whatever you want to call him, Jeff Nelson, to have that negative experience with Joe Best, with Joe Vegan, to keep having those negative experiences and keep opening the door for someone else to disappoint you again. Keep inviting someone in the same way I invited, Jack Green to come on. Still reach out positively, even if it's, one person out of 100 who rewards that effort with some level of appreciation or with some capacity to cooperate. It's depressing. It's depressing to see. I was looking yesterday at an especially awful video from Unnatural Vegan because someone here in my comment section told me about it. I went and had a look and I thought, oh my God, am I going to have to make a response video to this? And part of what makes it so depressing is you can look at the response from the audience And let me just say, not everything on Natural Vegan does is such garbage. This was an especially horrible video from an ethical vegan perspective from a natural vegan. And I can recognize not just the majority of the audience, the majority of the potential vegan audience here on YouTube is all supporting her, supporting the direction she's taking with this. That can be really, really depressing. It can be depressing to see the majority of people, the majority of your potential audience and actual audience supporting Durianrider when he's doing these terrible and immoral things, or when he's just lying, or supporting a natural vegan when she's at her kind of worst ebb of anti-vegan, pseudo-veganism, this kind of stuff. But I mean, the type of optimism you need to have is just appreciating how few people you need to get organized to make that positive difference in the world, right? I said to somebody in Chiang Mai face to face, I said, look, I know this YouTube game is rough. Like at that time, I probably said this the night we went out to karaoke. We're not sure if Durianrider is going to show up and actually have a fist fight with me, or if he's going to send other people to beat me up or whatever. I said, look, I know this YouTube thing is rough, but be honest with yourself. How many friends did you have the day you graduated from university? Did you have 10 friends? Did you have 50? If you really tell me you had 50 friends in real life when you graduated from university, I'm going to say you're a liar. I don't believe that's true of anybody. If you had 10, that's really impressive. Going through this process that is so disappointing, even when my expectations are low. I mean, obviously my expectations of Joe Best are low. My expectations of Jeff Nelson are low. It goes without saying. But still, I mean, you look at somebody like Jeff Nelson, why can't he just be reasonable? Not even cooperate, not even collaborate. Why can't he just be reasonable for the sake of veganism and the obviously positive role my channel plays in terms of talking about different elements of vegan activism? Why can't, whether it's somebody like Jeff Nelson or somebody like Jack Green, why can't this person just be fair and reasonable with me, even if we're not going to cooperate? Why do they have to be unreasonable and defamatory and vile? Why does it have to put me in this situation of conflict? And hey, a natural vegan also is an example of that from my perspective. But you're out there to win 5 people, 10 people, maybe 50 people who can cooperate with you positively, and that's going to make all the difference in the world. How many people do I need to cooperate with me to publish that illustrated children's book? Not even 50 people, I mean, that's the prize, that's the goal in terms of real world activism that you got to struggle for. And yes, it really can be depressing. It really can be demoralizing. Whether it's an idiot like Josh Randall, aka Vegan Revolution, or Vegan Foot Soldier, or any of these other examples I've mentioned, people who are just going out of their way to be unreasonable, to insult you, to defame you, and all this stuff. How many of them are there going to be? And how many times are you going to try to reach out to them positively to resolve that conflict and make some basis for cooperation? How many times are you going to go through that experience and be disappointed? 10 times? 100 times? I don't know. But I mean, that really is, it's an ineluctable part of making the positive connection with the 5 people, the 10 people, or the 50 people who can, in a positive way, change your own life, and who can, in a positive way, actually get organized, form some kind of foundation, take on real world projects for the sake of the movement. Whether that's something as simple as getting that children's book illustrated and published, or something much more ambitious. You guys might have noticed I used this little catchphrase of mine. A man without ambition is a man without ethics, when I was reproaching Ted Carr. What is it that motivates people to set aside their differences, to see the good in each other, to reason with each other, and just be reasonable? It's not so much just the malice hanging in one part of the balance. It's the lack of any ambition to do something positive on the other side of the balance and the other side of the scales. Because in any real world business venture, in any real world political venture, you have to put aside your differences and be reasonable and cooperate with people who have profound differences from you, people whom you can see real ethical failings in. And you do it for the good of the project, you do it for the good of the business, you do it for the good of the nation or public service, you do it for the good of the movement. You do it because you have some higher ambition that you want to pursue together, despite everything that may be wrong with the both of you.